So in stage 4, we worked with the gross distraction and strong dullness. And at the end of the stage 4, our attention is such that we are always aware of our meditation object, and our meditation object is always on the forefront. In the background, there is still some subtle distraction, subtle dullness, but our meditation object is always on the forefront. And in this stage, we work on the subtle dullness part, right? So at the end of this stage, our attention will be not just on the forefront, but more clear and more richer on the meditation object. Okay, so if we take a look on the diagram now, our monk is finally moved ahead of the elephant and the monkey. That shows now the mind is following the meditator, and the monkey has moved behind the elephant. That shows there is not so much gross distraction anymore. The mind is not so much scattered. There's more white in the monkey and the elephant. That shows more purification has happened, less fire. That shows less effort is required. Okay, so in this stage, we want to work with the subtle dullness. And in order to understand how to work with the subtle dullness, we need a little bit more deeper understanding of our experience, right? So my intuitive experience is basically such that currently I'm creating this video. In my field of vision, there is so many different objects. There's a camera, there's a laptop, and I can see different things, and there's sounds of cars passing by, and then there's some tactile situation in my hands and the way I'm sitting on my chair. So there's so many of these different experiences that I'm experiencing simultaneously, and it feels like they are getting registered all at the same time, right? I'm sort of having this multitasking kind of experience. On the other hand, these advanced meditators who wrote these books, their experience is much more deeper, right? And this is mentioned in Buddhism. So their experience is much more deeper. What they say is, it's not as if you are experiencing these things simultaneously, or you are experiencing them as a one stream of experience. It's more like you are experiencing them frame by frame, and in one time there can only be one frame. So at the one moment, you cannot actually be listening and seeing. There can only be one thing, right? There can only be one frame of experience that is happening, but your attention is moving so fast that it gives you this impression that it's like a stream of experience, and there is this sense of simultaneous experience that is happening, right? So how does this model is helping us to work with the subtle dullness? As for example, let's say, for simplified example, I have 10 frame in my moment of experience, right? So there's 10 frames behind the scene. Out of those 10 frames, let's say 4 of them was about my meditation object, right? The tactile sensation on my breath. Out of 10, 4 of those was about my breath, and let's say 2 of them were about some kind of a sudden distraction. Let's say I was having a little bit pain in my body, and these pain was registering in 2 of these frames. And then let's say rest of the 4 frame was empty. There was nothing in those frames. They were just plain and empty, right? So my experience in reality will be something like that I feel such a single pointed focus on my breath, right? But at the same time, that single pointed focus is not very clear, because there is so much intermingled of these subtle dullness behind the scene, or these empty frames behind the scene, right? And there is some distraction which I will feel in my awareness, right? So that is how the experience is happening. And what we want to basically do in terms of working with the subtle dullness is we want to reduce these 4 frames that is being generated as empty frames, right? So we want to reduce these 4 frames, and we want to add more of these breath related frames. So that will increase the clarity of my perception of my breath awareness, clarity of my perception of my meditation object, and decrease my subtle dullness, right? So that is more like a technical understanding behind how we work with the subtle dullness. Okay, so in reality, how do I know whether I'm facing the subtle dullness or not, right? So when I'm facing the subtle dullness, I notice that my attention or my object of meditation seems more fuzzier, little bit more diffused. In that sense, I can see like I'm still focused. There is still not so much distraction that is happening. My mind is not wandering so much, but still the meditation object that I am focused on is not as clear as it could be. It's not very crisp. It's more like a little bit dull and diffused. So that is how I know that my attention is having a lot of these empty frames, right? And that is how I know there's a subtle dullness present in my meditation practice, right? And the other thing about the subtle dullness is, or dullness of any kind, is that it's very pleasant, right? The dullness feels very kind of relaxed and pleasant, and it gives you the sense of joy in a weird way. So that we have to be aware of it, right? There isn't going to be very strong urge to solve the subtle dullness, or get out of the subtle dullness. In fact, we'll feel like we are feeling pretty good about our meditation. Okay, so that's our experience of subtle dullness, that I am having my meditation object slightly more diffused as compared to when I'm really alert and focused on my meditation object. Okay, so then how do I work on subtle dullness? How can I reduce these empty frames, and how can I increase the number of frames which are breath related, or which are my meditation object related? The way to do it is basically having a strong intention, right? So basically my intention is what is deciding what will be the next set of frames in my experience, in my moment of experiences, right? So if I can hold a stronger intention in terms of I want to focus on my breath, then the next moment of experience will have more and more frames of my breath sensation and less empty frames, right? And that's how I can increase the number of meditation frames and decrease, and that will automatically decrease these empty frames, and I will experience more stronger and clear perception of my meditation object, right? So that's how we work with the subtle dullness, and that's how we reduce the subtle dullness, with having a stronger intention, by increasing the intensity of our intention. And the end result of this stage is that our attention is very sharp and very clear, and perception of these breath related sensations are much more detailed and fine.